on the assurances that we have been given both by the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Health. The other issue that I would like to raise with respect to that is I'm cautious about introducing into legislation any restrictions or precedents with respect to conscience rights, because I think that sets a very dangerous precedent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Statement by members. Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the life and the legacy of a great Canadian, Mr. Gaetano Galliano. Mr. Galliano was an entrepreneur, a visionary, and a person of deep faith. His story is one of 70 years of marriage to Josephina, resulting in 10 children and 51 grand and great-grandchildren. He uniquely was a member of the Order of Canada in his adopted country and received the highest honour as a citizen of his birth country of Italy. After World War II, a young Gaetano immigrated from Italy. He set up shop in the basement of his rented home in 1956, where he founded a printing shop named after Canada's patron saint. St. Joseph Communications is today Canada's largest private communications company. Gaetano, at the remarkable age of 86, founded Salt and Light Media TV, Canada's first Catholic television network, now supported by Pope Francis. Gaetano lived his entire life with God squarely in the center of it and was an example to many. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As many of us know, walks were held in communities across Canada yesterday to bring awareness and raise funds in the fight against multiple sclerosis. I had an opportunity to attend the MS Walk in my home of Lindsay, where over $10,000 was raised. I would like to congratulate the volunteers and participants, not just in my riding, but across this great country, including Rhiannon Antoniak from Fenelon Falls. This brave woman not only suffers from MS, she has been the honorary chair and top fundraiser for 3 years in a row at the Lindsay Walk. According to the MS Society, approximately 100,000 Canadians, mostly aged 15 to 40, suffer from MS. MS, unfortunately, is known as Canada's disease. We have the highest rate of people suffering in the world. I can personally attest to the effect this disease can have on families. My mother passed away in 2013 after a decade of battling a progressive form of MS. Sadly, there is no cure for MS, but each day, researchers are learning more about what causes this terrible disease. And
the honourable member for Mission, Matsqui, Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to congratulate Dean Arsene and Courtney Inman for their induction to Abbotsford Sports Hall and Fame, and the 5 teams and 13 individuals who were recognized by the Wall of Fame. The Wall of Fame honors up to and coming athletes from the ages of 14 to 25 that had outstanding years in their sport. They're recognized with a plaque in the Legacy Sports Centre for 1 year. Mr. Speaker, these athletes have displayed perseverance and dedication in sport, which helped their accomplishment amazing feats. Congratulations to the athletes who were recognized last Saturday. It is a wonderful example to young people to stay active in their daily lives, and that practice and commitment in what you love to do can help you accomplish your goals. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
For over a century, Asian peoples have been coming to Canada, contributing to the rich multicultural tapestry of Canada. This month, Canadians will have the opportunity to learn about the diverse Asian cultures in celebration of Asian Heritage Month. Explore Asian has brought together different organizations and created a month-long program filled with great events, from music and art shows to thought-provoking documentaries and film festivals to highlight the historic struggles Asian Canadians face and their many achievements. To kick things off, this past weekend, I attended the opening of Van East's very own award-winning Chinese calligrapher Master Wei Yin Lao's art exhibition, which showcased 6 distinct Chinese calligraphy art forms at the Chinese Cultural Center. The Chinese Cultural Center will also host the Together Art Festival, featuring performances from Korea, Japan, China, and Polynesia on May 28th. I encourage all Canadians to take part in the many activities in their own community to learn about and celebrate Asian Canadian culture.
The honourable member for Fleetwood Port Cows.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I had the honour of laying a wreath at the Centennial Flame on behalf of Surrey's veterans to commemorate the Battle of the Atlantic. Throughout World War II, convoys battled storms, submarines, and air attacks, keeping Britain's lifeline open. Brave Canadians in our Navy, Merchant Marine, and Air Force helped Britain endure and set the stage for the liberation of Europe. This was my dad's war. He's an ASDIC operator going ping happy listening for U-boats on the HMCS Kincardine and Gulf. Two tough little corvettes that could, in his words, roll on wet grass as they shepherded the runs from Halifax and Sydney. It was uncomfortable and dangerous. 1 in 7 of our merchant mariners, over 1,600, were killed or wounded, as were over 2,000 in our Navy and Air Force. And as we know, many of them were little more than kids. Mr. Speaker, I hope the House will join me to honor these Canadians who fought the longest battle of the war. They fought it well, and they won.
The honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure to congratulate the 100-mile Wranglers on an outstanding season. The Wranglers are not only champions of the Kootenay International Junior Hockey League and the British Columbia Junior B Division, but the boys from 100 Mile House also lassoed the Western Canada Championship, the Keystone Cup. The road to victory was hard-fought, but not without a lot of support from back home. When they traveled to Esquimalt, Wranglers fans actually bought 40% of the tickets. They then went on to defeat the Kimberley Dynamiters in 5 games to secure the crown in Regina. In the words of one local reporter, people from as far away as Thunder Bay and all through the West know these 22 lads who have represented 100 Mile House so well with their respect and community-mindedness. They never gave up, and they worked hard every minute of every game. Last week's parade and tailgate party was a fitting tribute to the Wranglers players and the organization. Well done, Wranglers. You are the champions of the West.
The honourable member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
Speaker, I recently met 2 amazing volunteers in Langley City. The first is Pauline Knight, who turned 100 in February. Pauline still volunteers at the Langley Seniors Resource Centre in Langley City, as she's done for 24 years. The second is Rob Ross. Children have always been important to Mr. Ross. As a retired teacher and principal, along with being a father to his own children, Mr. Ross became a volunteer with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Langley 40 years ago. In that time, he's made the difference in the lives of an astounding 14 littles, many of whom still play important parts in Rob's life. And speaking of volunteers, Mr. Speaker, I invite you, my colleagues, and all Canadians to enjoy our community Cloverdale style. The 70th annual Cloverdale Rodeo, the second largest community rodeo in Canada, and 128th Country Fair run from May 20th to 23rd. With all the components of a great community celebration supported by countless volunteers, there are activities for all ages and interests. Thank you.
The honourable member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, Wisconsin, New Brunswick played host to the TELUS Cup last week, and what a week it was. The Cup was the end of the season's journey that began last fall with 152 teams seeking to be crowned Canada's national midget hockey champions. True to epic storytelling, Canada came together to watch the hometown heroes, the St. John Vitoes, battle against the pride of Ontario, the North York Rangers, in the finals, and this was the first time that a New Brunswick team had reached that level. As one of the thousands of fans at the Q-Plex last Sunday, I was moved as the crowd rose to their feet to applaud the Vitoes for the full last minute of the game as they achieved a silver medal standing. I would like to congratulate all the players, the organizers, the sponsors, and a special mention to event chair Aaron Kennedy for the spectacular success of the tournament. And thank you to the St. John Vitoes for reminding us that hockey truly is our national sport, building character, promoting teamwork, creating lifelong friendships, and bringing communities together.
The honourable member for Cypress Hills, Grasslands.
Mr. Speaker, today leading scholars, faith leaders, diplomats, and members of the public will come to Parliament Hill for the 5th Annual Parliamentary Forum on Religious Freedom. The 4 previous forums touched on specific issues regarding the right to freedom of thought and belief. Each was thought-provoking and challenged participants to recommit in new and different ways to this fundamental human right. This year promises to be no different. This year's forum is entitled Religious Freedom or Secularism, a World Safe for Diversity Living with Our Deepest Differences. We will explore whether an increasingly secular world can or will continue to support the notion that every person should be free to decide what they believe, should be able to practice daily that belief, and should be able to change that belief if they choose. This year, leading apologist, author, and social critic Dr. Os Guinness will deliver the keynote address. He brings decades of expertise and wisdom to this ongoing debate. Canada sees these freedoms as essential. However, the way forward is not always clear. That makes tonight's discussion all the more important.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Mr. Speaker, thank you. Last Saturday, I attended an event organized by the Laotian community of my riding. With over 400 people in Rivière-des-Mille-Îles, we celebrated the Buddhist New Year. Smiles, good food, and dancing helped ring in the new Buddhist year. Did you know that we're in 2559? Mr. Speaker, the Laotian community, based in Boisbriand, perfectly reflects Canada's cherished values of inclusion, openness, and inclusion. And I would like to pay tribute to the leadership of the community's chair, Madame Manivan Dugmala, who has worked tirelessly for 35 years to help Laotian immigrants settle in the Montreal area. It's thanks to leaders like Ms. Dugmala that we work to create a warm welcome for new arrivals in Canada. Madame Dugmala, continue your great work, and of course, Happy New Year 2559. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Dorval-Lachine-LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, as a proud member of the Quebec Bar Association, it's a great pleasure for me to note that this year is the 75th anniversary of women being admitted to the practice of law in Quebec in 1941. This milestone did not happen overnight. In 1914, Annie Langstaff was the first woman from Quebec to obtain a law degree from McGill University. However, despite her many efforts, she was never able to officially practice her profession. On April 29, 1941, Quebec's Bar Association Act was finally amended, and in January 1942, the first 4 women were called to the Quebec Bar.
Women have advanced to become approximately half the lawyers in the province, and in doing so, they pay tribute to the groundbreaking women who successfully fought for change 75 years ago.
The Honourable Member for Perth Wellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to pay tribute to the life of the Honourable William Jarvis, who passed away last week at the age of 85. Bill was first elected to the House of Commons in 1972 for the riding of Perth-Wilmot. He would go on to serve in this House for the next 12 years, always tending to the needs of his riding and to his constituents. In 1979, he was appointed to Cabinet as the Minister of State for Federal-Provincial Relations. After leaving elected politics in 1984, he continued to serve his country and his party as President of the Progressive Conservative Party of Canada from 1986 to 1989. I'm sure all honourable members will join me in paying tribute and expressing our condolences to Bill's family, including his wife, Louisette, his children, Richard and Elizabeth, and their mother, Vivian. While we may mourn the loss of Bill, we can certainly pay tribute and honour his legacy and his dedication to this House, his country, and his citizens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Don Valley West.
Mr. Speaker, May is Vision Health Month, a month to celebrate the contributions of blind and partially sighted Canadians and thank those who are reducing barriers, improving accessibility, providing health eye care, and doing or supporting innovative research in the area of vision loss. Close to 500,000 Canadians live with significant vision loss. And over the next decade, as our population increases, vision loss among Canadians is expected to rise by nearly 30%. Over 5.5 million Canadians have one of 4 major eye diseases: age-related macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, glaucoma, and cataracts. But being blind or suffering vision loss should not limit anyone in Canada. This month, CNIB, with its head office in Don Valley West, is asking Canadians to open their eyes to blindness. They will be sharing truly visionary stories of Canadians who are living with vision loss, demystifying what it means to be blind. Please join me in commemorating Vision Health Month.
Here, here. Regina Louvain.
Mr. Speaker, the night before last, I attended the 23rd Annual Saskatchewan Book Awards, which recognize authors and publishers in our province. My former professor, Raymond Blake, was nominated for his book, Lions or Jellyfish: Newfoundland-Ottawa Relations since 1957. I believe that he would have won had there been a category for Best Title. I was very proud that my colleague from Timmins James Bay won 2 awards for his book, Children of the Broken Treaty, published by the University of Regina Press. This book provides chilling insight into how Canada, through breaches of treaty, broken promises, and callous neglect, denied First Nations children their basic human rights. Tragedies at Wapiskat in his riding and at La Loche in my province underscore that we must do better.
The honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is the beginning of Iran Accountability Week here on Parliament Hill, which I'm proud to co-host alongside Senator Linda Frum. The objectives of this week are to bring more awareness on the Iranian regime's transgressions, including being the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism, its nuclear ambitions, aggressively jailing political opponents, and an egregious track record on human rights.
We will be giving a voice to the victims of the Iranian regime while informing parliamentarians, the media, and Canadians of the atrocities being committed in Iran. Hamas and Hezbollah, both listed terrorist entities in Canada, have both received critical support from Iran.
Iran's constant threat to the peace and security of the State of Israel is something that should be concerning to all members of this House and to all Canadians, as the Ayatollah Khamenei constantly called for the destruction of Israel. We are hosting numerous events this week, Mr. Speaker, such as a Speaker's Evening with experts about Iran discussing the regime's transgressions. All are welcome.
The Honourable Member for Honoré-Mercier. Mr. Speaker, I would like to honour a great man who recently left us, my friend and a friend of many in this House, Yvan Charbonneau. Yvan was one of the greats. He was a giant, a man of great stature, generous, principled. He was driven by noble values, and he had the courage to defend those values. And throughout his political career, Yvan knew how to bring progress on many important issues, whether that be as a union leader, as a provincial MNA, a federal MP, or even as ambassador. In every circumstance, Yvan knew how to make a difference. And when I followed Yvan as member for Honoré-Mercier, I knew that I had enormous shoes to fill. And I insist on the word followed, Mr. Speaker, because one can follow Yvan, but never, never replace him, because he was irreplaceable. Thank you for your friendship and your valuable advice. You will always guide my work as an MP. Adieu, Yvan. Rest in peace.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, once again, the Prime Minister's own Department of Finance has confirmed that, and a drum roll, please, Conservatives left a healthy surplus for Canadians. It's an undeniable fact, but sadly, instead of following our lead of low taxes, balanced budgets, and job creation, the Prime Minister is raising taxes, spending recklessly, and has no plan to create jobs. So, Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister won't admit basic facts, how can we trust him to run our economy?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Department of Finance maintains and have informed me that we will be in a deficit position for the year 2015-2016. The annual financial report will be out in the month of September. So we're focusing on things that really matter for Canadians. Rather than focusing on balancing the budget at all costs, we're investing in Canada, we're investing in Canadians. We started with the tax break, and we move forward with a budget that's going to help Canadians to live better lives, what they asked us to do on October 19th.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
When the Finance Minister was asked about the surplus that he clearly inherited from Conservatives, he said, and I quote, "We don't want to focus on this issue." Of course, he doesn't want to, Mr. Speaker, when his own department, the Independent Parliamentary Budget Officer, and economists are telling him that now he is solely responsible for any deficit that Canadians will have to pay back. So how can Canadians trust this government to run the economy when their own Finance Minister won't admit basic facts?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we're moving forward with a plan that's going to make a real difference for Canadians. It starts by helping middle-class Canadians to have better lives. It started with tax cuts, and it moved forward with the Canada Child Benefit that will really improve Canadians' lives. Checks will be starting this July. Then we're going to move forward with investments that will make a real long-term difference in the productivity and the strength of our economy, so in the future we'll be much better off than we were in the last decade under the last government.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals are ignoring the truth. We now have the confirmation that the Conservatives left a significant sum. Will the Prime Minister now admit that we left a surplus and that he is the only one responsible for the current financial mess? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, professionals in the Department of Finance told to me that we will be in a deficit position for 2015-16. The annual financial report will be ready in September, and that means that now we're going to do things that we can do to grow the economy. This is our process now to be certain that we can have a situation where we can do the best for middle-class Canadians. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, I rarely agree with the Minister of Finance. They'll be in a deficit position and we'll be in a surplus. Mr. Speaker, the department's financial report confirmed that there was a $5 billion surplus in February, $7.5 billion. And they're going to have a $13 billion deficit for the month of March alone. I'd like to hear the Minister of Finance on that. Mr. Speaker, what I was saying is that we now know that we will be in a deficitary position for the 2015-2016 year. The report will be ready in September. We will have the report, but for the moment, we have a plan to grow the economy because that is what we must do with the situation we have with such a low rate of growth over the last decade. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean, Mr. Speaker, on such an important position. I participated yesterday in a march to support the forestry industry, and Mr. Speaker, across the country has been subject to vicious attacks by certain environmental groups. Mr. Speaker, can we have a confirmation that this government will support the country's forestry industry because they need help across the country? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Forest industry is important to our economy and to communities across the country. Budget 2016 provides $1 billion over 4 years, starting in 2017-2018, to support clean technology in the forestry, fisheries, mining, energy and agriculture sectors as part of the Government of Canada's commitment to innovation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker. On the weekend, the Prime Minister was very proud to say that Quebec and Ottawa had agreed, and yet on the assistance to Bombardier issue, they've been playing the same tape for months. During the campaign and since they formed the government, the Liberals have not presented any plan to support the aerospace industry. This is an industry that directly employs 76,000 Canadians, more than half of whom are in Quebec. Will the Prime Minister finally understand the importance of this sector to our economy and table a clear plan for the aerospace industry?
Economic development.
Mr. Speaker, our government understands the importance of the aerospace sector. We understand the 180,000 jobs it creates from coast to coast to coast. We understand it contributes $29 billion to our economy as well, Mr. Speaker. It's also about supporting the supplier base, and that is why we're engaged with the company. We're engaged in a meaningful dialogue with the company to make sure we set it up for success in the long term, because we want to have a thriving and growing aerospace sector in this country, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Hochelaga. That is not a clear nor a precise answer. This government shows no interest in supporting aerospace workers and their families. They prefer giving a blank check to Air Canada with Bill C-10, which sacrifices work and quality of life of 2,600 families. Then they don't even have the courage to debate it in depth in Parliament. Is the Prime Minister not ashamed to abandon these workers after having protested alongside them? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you know, The government of Quebec and the government of Manitoba said they intended to drop their suit against Air Canada, which would allow us to clarify the Air Canada Public Participation Act, and that is what we are doing in order to clarify it and ensure that there'll be no future lawsuits. But I remind my colleague that there will be jobs in Quebec, in Ontario, and in Manitoba.
Valley. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. British Columbia's north coast is an incredibly beautiful place, famous for the power of its people. This Prime Minister and his Transport Minister twice joined with us and the people of British Columbia to ban all oil supertankers off that coast. And asked about the threat posed by Enbridge Northern Gateway, he said, and I quote, "I will not be approving this pipeline." Will he now stand in his place and finally tell British Columbians when he will finally introduce a legislated tanker ban off our beautiful coast?
Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, as everyone knows, I was mandated to establish a formal moratorium on crude oil tanker traffic on the north coast of British Columbia. I am doing this in concert with my colleagues, the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and the Coast Guard, the Minister of the Environment, the Minister of Natural Resources. We are proceeding with consultations with First Nations and with environmental groups and with the shipping industry. We're doing our homework. When we have something to say, we'll say it.
The Honourable Member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley.
Take to just say no. This government has refused again to give us any timeline whatsoever and offered actually only more confusion. Just a few days ago, I visited the Central Coast and Haida Gwaii, and the people there, the First Nations there, are particularly shocked and saddened by this government's unwillingness to be clear and perhaps willingness to betray that sacred promise. This Prime Minister also stood on Haida Gwaii and promised to the people, promised to the Haida, promised to British Columbians that he would be an ally and he'd bring this tanker ban forward. So when exactly are we going to see it?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
As I mentioned, my mandate letter obliges me to have a formal moratorium on oil transportation on the northwest shore of BC. That's what I'm trying to do, working with my colleagues, with the Fisheries and Oceans, the Minister of Environment, and the Minister of Natural Resources. This work is underway now. We are also consulting the First Nations and environmental groups, as well as the shippers. And when we have news to announce, I will announce it.
Recap, Mr. Speaker, from our constituency week. Last week, Finance Canada actually announced that the federal government had a $7.5 billion surplus. It's the first time that officials at Finance Canada have actually confirmed that we left them with a surplus, and that's because of our strong fiscal management and the fact that we're prudent on balanced budgets. Now, when the finance minister was asked about this, he waved away the report, and he said, quite frankly, he's not focusing on that. Well, Mr. Speaker, I think Canadians want him to focus on the numbers. So my question for the finance minister is this: when will you stop misleading Canadians on what the actual fiscal situation is?
I think that member means when will he, not when will he. I hope she isn't talking to me. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
I just want to say thank goodness for Canadians that they made the right choice on October 19th. Members from the other side are still stuck in this whole balanced budget thing. They really.
Order. I know members are eager to applaud the question, but they need to wait till we hear the end of the question. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
And two things. Number one, a fiscal year has 12 months, and we don't have the 12th month. Number two, Canadians, they hired us to invest in the economy. They hired us to invest in the future growth for this country, and that's exactly what we intend on doing.
The Honourable Member for Milton.
The Liberals were indeed left $7.5 billion in surplus. But that being said, their plan is to plunge us into billions and billions of dollars in debt. Now, interestingly enough, Mr. Speaker, the finance minister wrote a book. And in his book, he said the following: debt prevents you from doing things, such as sleeping well at night. So my question for the Finance Minister is this: how's he sleeping at night?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I am absolutely pleased to tell the honourable member that I'm sleeping well at night. Knowing that what we're doing is we're making my children and my grandchildren better off. We're making them better off by making investments in the economy. We're investing in infrastructure that will make their lives better, that will allow them to have better lives in the future. We're going to invest in an innovative economy that can actually increase the productive capacity of our country. So, Mr. Speaker, Canadians made the right choice on October 19th. They made the choice to invest.
Member for Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, it must be frustrating for the Finance Minister that the facts keep getting in the way of his rhetoric. Once again, he's been completely contradicted by his own department, which reported he inherited a $7.5 billion Conservative surplus. Will the Finance Minister at least try to salvage some credibility and finally admit that Conservatives left him a surplus and that his own reckless spending squandered it?
The Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I can only say it again. The professionals in the Department of Finance tell us it will be in a deficit in fiscal year 2015-2016, which has not yet been concluded. When the reports come in September, we will see the results. In the interim, we are focusing on what Canadians really care about, and that's that we make investments so that we can make their lives better, which is exactly what we're doing.
Member for Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, it's bad enough that he squandered the surplus, but the Finance Minister doesn't have to keep squandering his credibility while he does it. For months, the Finance Minister has ignored the independent analysis of the PBO, private sector economists, and his own finance department. Yes, he has. Instead, he's decided to rely on his own magic to build a reckless budget. Why does the Finance Minister think that his mismanaging the public purse is a game?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be clear about what the Parliamentary Budget Officer did say most recently. What they said was that Budget 2016 would, in fact, help to grow the economy, which is exactly what we put forward to Canadians. We expect that the measures we put in Budget 2016 will actually grow the economy by about 0.5% this year and by about 1% next year. 43,000 jobs this year, 100,000 jobs next year. Mr. Speaker, we are pleased with what we put forward, and we know that will be much better for Canadians for the future.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The newspaper La Presse informs us this morning that once again a Liberal government has hidden information from Canadians. And once again, this is the Department of Finance, because they analyzed the cost of Liberal promises. And this document has now been made public, but it is heavily redacted. And this is important because the minister knows well that his promises will cost Canadians a fortune. Why is he hiding such important information from Canadians? The Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, the openness and transparency of the Department of Finance is very important to me and to our government. In this case, the department answered a question with all of the necessary rules, and it was independent of myself, which is good. But now, what I want to say with our 2016 budget, the numbers are there. We can see exactly what we've done. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. With all due respect, from the outset, he hasn't gotten us used to too much transparency. Tax changes weren't supposed to cost anything, and it'll be a $1.7 billion hole. And changes for children's, it's the same. So the minister is clear. Will the minister commit to giving the details on all of these expenses to Canadians, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, as I said, the figures are in the budget. We can see exactly what the measures are and what the costs of those measures are. It's open and transparent for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Baguette. Mr. Speaker, after having learned that the Church did not comply with its obligation to pay $25 million to fund programs for the victims of residential schools, the Minister says that she's powerless and can do nothing. And yet this amount is in the settlement approved by the courts. And it's her department that authorized the agreement allowing the Church to avoid paying. When will the Minister of Indigenous Affairs oblige the Church to meet its obligations to victims of residential schools? The Honourable Minister. Even though the previous government left no legal remedies, the government continues to work alongside the Catholic entities. It's very important that they play their role in reconciliation and respect the commitments that they made in terms of reconciliation, regardless of what their legal obligations are.
Speaker, the Human Rights Tribunal has made it clear that they're fed up with this government's inaction on dealing with the issue of racial discrimination against Indigenous children. They point out that the Liberal budget failed children in area child welfare. The government continues to deny medical services to children and fight their families in court. And the Tribunal has effectively put Indigenous affairs under third-party management because they simply don't trust them. So the Prime Minister is a Minister of Youth. Will he respect this ruling? And if so, what are the immediate steps this government will take to end the systemic discrimination against Indigenous children in this country?
Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we are absolutely going to fulfill our obligations under the tribunal ruling, including the new definition and broader definition of Jordan's principle. It is extraordinary. I had a very good meeting this morning with Dr. Blackstock and the AFN, and we are going to work with the provinces and territories to get this done.
The honourable member for Battleford, Lloydminster.
Mr. Speaker, the greatest opportunity to get the TPP ratified is before the next U.S. president takes office. Former Obama Defense Secretary Leon Panetta says there's a low probability of it passing Congress if they do not pass it before the end of this presidential term. Yet the Liberals are engaging in endless consultations here, and the minister says it's not her job to promote the TPP. When will the minister spend more time on trade promotion and less time on vanity trips to L.A.?
Secretary of the Prime Minister, Consular Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, the Canadian government made a commitment to consult Canadians before taking a decision on ratification. That's exactly what we've been doing since we've taken office. The government has consulted on this agreement over 250 separate occasions and will continue to do so. I'm also very glad that the House of Commons Trade Committee has invited Canadians to share their opinion with them in public hearings. Perhaps this is something the previous government is not accustomed to, but this is something that will promise Canadians, and we're fulfilling this promise.
Member for Battleford, Lloydminster.
Of course, Mr. Speaker, there were a full round of consultations last spring when we were still in government as we led up to the TPP. On April 20th, Canada's lead negotiator for the TPP is quoted in the Hill Times, so it must be accurate, saying that this coming year is looking exciting. She will be assisting the International Trade Minister in ratifying the TPP deal that she worked so hard on, and we agree with that. Now that we've confirmed the Liberals have already made up their mind, Mr. Speaker, will the Minister bring the TPP to the House for ratification and start spending more time on trade promotion instead of costly self-promotion?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know what the honourable member has against consultation. I don't know what the honourable member has against the hard work of the members of the Standing Committee on International Trade. Our minister, our parliamentary secretary, our government is committing to fulfilling our promise to consult Canadians. We're working very hard on this consultation, and I invite the honourable member and his colleagues to participate in this consultation.
Honourable member for Red Deer, Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, documents released through the Access to Information indicate the Minister of International Trade left her officials in the dark about her vanity trip to California, and there are significant factual inconsistencies with the answers the minister has provided about her California dream trip. She built a taxpayer-funded junket to L.A. around her late-night TV appearance. Does the minister believe that her ministry is just an extension of her so-called celebrity journalism career?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, the minister visited Los Angeles to reinforce the important economic relationship between California and Canada. California and Canada conduct over $40 billion in annual bilateral trade. The ministers made it clear that all the rules appropriate were followed with this trip. In addition to roundtables with the business community and creative industries during the Los Angeles Trade Mission, the minister was proud to promote Canada to an American audience, including Canada's leadership on the Syrian refugee file.
Member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we know the minister rescheduled her personal vanity trip to California from October to November after she was appointed to cabinet. Emails released through Access to Information indicate her staff were left in the dark until the final days of her LA departure. Apparently nobody but the minister knew she was going to LA to spend some time with Bill Maher.
What a disaster.
When is the minister going to be honest with Canadians and admit this trip was about her and not about her job as the trade minister?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, one group of people that weren't in the dark about the minister's trip to California were the business leaders, the academic leaders, and the government leaders that she met with when she was in California to promote Canadian trade. And, Mr. Speaker, $40 billion a year in bilateral trade is something we think it's important. If that member doesn't think so, then he has a different view than this side of the House.
Honourable member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie.
Mr. Speaker, Communication Security Establishment, which, by the way, oversees CSIS, is responsible for reporting serious privacy breaches to the Commissioner. But instead, they are hiding them. The Privacy Commissioner stated that CSC, quote, that does not give the Office of the Privacy Commissioner enough information. Whoa. Does the government agree with the NDP that withholding information about serious privacy breaches is simply wrong?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to make clear for the honourable member, the Communications Security Establishment has no oversight or any oversight over CSIS. But to answer her question, CSE has proactively worked with the Commissioner on all aspects, and they do have a good working relationship, and because CSE applies by the Canadian law, including the Privacy Act as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. That's strange, Mr. Speaker, because that's not what the Commissioner said. So clearly, this government does not take the protection of privacy seriously. We learned today that the CSE is refusing to report serious privacy breaches to the Privacy Commissioner. And yet, it has no problem collecting data on Canadians and sharing it. Will the government finally respect its promises of transparency and demand that the CSE cooperate?
Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, in the previous report that the Commissioner released, he said that the CSE officials proactively provided the information to them, and which allowed them to conduct a thorough investigation. I also want to remind the honourable member that CSE plays a critical role in protecting against cyber threats, foreign espionage, and foreign terrorist-based threats as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, science and data are the cornerstone of good public policy. Canadians expect us to make informed decisions based on reliable data. This is the role Statistic Canada has been fulfilling for many years with their census program. The data collected through census survey helps policymakers and planners make decisions on everything from public health to transit to housing. Can the government tell the House what we can expect with the return of mandatory census program this year? Thank you.
Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the honourable member from Richmond Hill for his efforts in supporting good data collection. And I'm proud to say that my first official act was to reinstate the mandatory long-form census, Mr. Speaker. Today, census letters and packages are being sent to all Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Canadians will have access to high-quality data that truly reflects the needs of our communities and businesses, Mr. Speaker. After 10 years, evidence-based decision-making is back, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, we know that the Minister of International Trade likes to spend public funds abroad in order to shirk her ministerial obligations so that she can appear on Hollywood talk shows. Can the minister explain to us, Mr. Speaker, how she is defending the trade interests of Canada by rushing to Los Angeles to grant an interview to Bill Mayer, and by sticking Canadian taxpayers with a bill for $20,000. Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, the minister did defend Canada's economic interests when she met with the leaders of the business community, public servants, and elected officials of California. We believe that a trade relationships of $40 billion per year is important. The minister signed important agreements while she was there. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Laubignan. Mr. Speaker, just watch the Minister of Trade International go. We can understand that she wasn't in Los Angeles to negotiate trade agreements in the interests of Canadians. Now, that being said, Mr. Speaker, can her government confirm that it will support the Trans-Pacific Partnership because it is extremely beneficial for our producers of beef, pork, maple syrup, and blueberries? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Global Affairs.
Our government is committed to consulting Canadians on the TPP. The House of Commons Standing Committee for International Trade is conducting a study on the TPP. So I invite all members of this House to participate in this consultation, and we're looking forward to a meaningful discussion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, the Trade Minister's own officials were not told of the LA junket until November 17th, 2 days before she arrived.
Imagine that.
The Department's Director of Communications didn't even know what the Minister was doing in LA besides the Bill Maher show. Her department scrambled to find events so she could bill the vanity trip to the taxpayers of Canada. When will the Trade Minister pay for this personal trip so Canadian taxpayers don't have to?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, our government doesn't apologize for promoting Canadian business interests abroad. When the Minister of Trade was in California, as I have mentioned before, as she has mentioned before, she had a series of meetings with business leaders, with officials in the government of California. We think promoting Canada on critical issues like our support, for example, for Syrian refugees is an important part of every member of Parliament's work. And, Mr. Speaker, we're proud of our Minister of International Trade.
Elgin, Middlesex, London.
Mr. Speaker, the Treasury Board's guidelines require ministers to disclose their travel and hospitality costs quarterly. For the past few months, the Minister of Finance has been traveling all over Europe, Asia, and Canada, but has only disclosed the cost of one trip. This minister is in charge of Canada's finances, but won't even obey the law when it comes to his own travel. Mr. Speaker, why is the Finance Minister hiding his own spending from Canadians?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Speaker, we are, as a government, committed to proactive disclosure of ministers' expenses. In fact, there was a previous Liberal government under the leadership of Prime Minister Martin that first introduced proactive disclosure of ministers' expenses, and it was our Prime Minister in opposition that for the first time ever, members of Parliament proactively disclosed their expenses. We're committed to proactive disclosure, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue to be as a government.
Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, in a few days, Liberal government will be shutting down the Comox MCTS station. The minister keeps claiming there is no risk. But just last weekend, a massive communications failure in Prince Rupert meant the entire west coast of Vancouver Island was left with no marine safety communications. This puts lives of mariners in danger. Will this minister now reverse the Conservative decision to close the Comox station?
For Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for the question. Mr. Speaker, I am aware of the temporary outage that happened in Prince Rupert, Mr. Speaker, and I want to assure all members, including the member herself, that outage had nothing to do with the modernization of our MTCS systems. Mr. Speaker, the outage was caused by a third-party landline, and Comox, by the way, Mr. Speaker, has virtually no overlapping coverage in this sector and was not a factor in the situation at all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Port Moody, Coquitlam.
The Liberals are clearly choosing to ignore the evidence here. During the campaign, the Prime Minister promised Canadians they would reopen the Kitsilano Coast Guard Station. Once in power, the Minister assured Canadians it would be operational 24/7, 365. Now it appears that that's not the case. The base will only reopen on a part-time basis. Why did the minister mislead Canadians about this commitment?
Very good question.
The Minister for Fisheries.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for his question. Mr. Speaker, last December, I announced that we would be reopening Kitsilano. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, I'm proud to say that we kept that commitment and the base became operational. We are continuing our phased-in capacity at the base, Mr. Speaker, and by the May long weekend, Mr. Speaker, the same number of search and rescue crew will be on site at the facility as was previously. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Conservatives host Iran Accountability Week on the Hill, we recognize that Iran is widely considered the world's preeminent sponsor of state terrorism through its support of groups including Hezbollah and Hamas. The Iranian regime has been correctly listed by Canada as a state sponsor of terrorism. This listing has enabled terror victims to sue Iran in Canadian courts and hold the regime accountable. Will the Liberals do the right thing and commit to keeping Iran designated as a state sponsor of terror?
Foreign Affairs.
I want to thank, Mr. Speaker, my colleague for the question. We have no current plans to remove Iran from the list of state supporters of terrorism under the State Immunity Act. Their inclusion or exclusion in the future will be based on the actions from the Iranian government, because I'm sure it was the purpose to see improvement about human rights to protect the people of Iran. And it's very clear that they need to make a lot of progress. How much their record regarding human rights and the relationship with our allies, including Israel, is appalling.
Member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Global Affairs indicated before the Foreign Affairs Committee that Canada was taking the necessary measures to renew dialogue with Iran with a view to potentially reopening an embassy in Tehran. Will the minister pledge today to consulting Iranian Canadians before any final decision is made and provide opposition critics in all transparency with threat assessments for a Canadian delegation to Tehran? The Honourable Minister for Global Affairs. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that I always offer my full cooperation, and it is well known that we believe that engagement is preferable to retreating. It was an error to withdraw Canada from Iran because the situation with human rights is no better. So we have to be in a position to help Iranian Canadians, and it is because of Conservatives' policy of pulling out that we have not been able to help these people.
Other than Iran's supreme leader and official state media to get a clear and obvious handle on Iran's terrorist agenda. The regime boasts about its financial support of its terrorist proxies, its rogue missile program, and regularly proclaims the destruction of Israel a regime priority. Iran's state television this month is calling for young men to volunteer to fight in Syria to position to invade Israel. Mr. Speaker, how can the Liberals, even for an instant, consider delisting Iran as a state sponsor of terror?
Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Thank you for the question, but I'm the obligation to repeat, and I'm pleased to do so. We have no current plans to remove Iran from the list of state supporters of terrorism under the State Immunity Act. The inclusion or exclusion in the future will be based on the actions from the Iranian government. I think it was the purpose of this motion, and it's why we will respect it, because we want to see improvement in Iran. It's why we are engaging with this country to help all the people of Iran who want to have more human rights in this country.
Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the comprehensive and economic trade agreement with Europe is a major priority for our government because Canadian business people and companies will be able to take advantage of the tremendous benefits that this opportunity affords. We want all sectors of our economy to be able to move forward once this agreement is ratified. Can the Minister of Agriculture tell us about the initiatives that he is taking to ensure that the Canadian dairy industry can continue to grow within an evolving global market?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate my honourable colleague in question. I can assure him in this House that our government is fully committed to the Canadian dairy industry and the supply management sector. That's why we have announced today that the government will be sitting down with the dairy industry in the coming weeks to get their views on the mitigation package as part of the CETA trade deal. Together, our government will help the industry adjust, and we will reach the best possible outcome for our dairy industry and ensure Canadian agriculture is safer, stronger, and more innovative. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have abandoned regulations that would require generic drugs to have tamper-resistant properties. Mr. Speaker, this decision has put the health and safety of Canadians at risk. Not only does the decision allow for drug tampering and misuse to continue, but doctors themselves are now hesitating to prescribe these drugs to those who need them, fearing that the drugs will end up on the illicit market. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister of Health listen to physicians on the ground and reintroduce tamper-resistant regulations?
Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, an appropriate response to the problem of problematic drug use and prescription drug abuse needs to be comprehensive. There is no single strategy that will solve the problem, and there is no single drug that needs to be addressed. The problem of tamper-resistant opioids, if it is applied only to a single drug, will not solve the problem. People will only go to another drug. We will continue with our comprehensive approach that will include increasing education and minimizing harm.
The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, small businesses are the job creators of our country. We thought the Liberals understood this when they campaigned to lower small business taxes. But Liberals have clearly broken that promise. New documents obtained by the Parliamentary Budget Office show the Liberals' plan will take $2.1 billion out of the pockets of small business. Why are the Liberals taking billions from small business, and why are they hiding this cash grab in an omnibus budget bill?
Parliamentary Secretary for Small Business and Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for the question, because at this side of the House we do understand small business. One of the things I'd like all my colleagues to realise is the BizPal program that we have. Entrepreneurs have made it clear to us that navigating through permits and licenses through all levels of government are confusing, frustrating, and most importantly, time-consuming, Mr. Speaker. So we're proud of our BizPal program. It's one of the many ways we align our efforts with provincial, territorial, municipal governments to support and respond to what all entrepreneurs and small businesses are asking us. They want to succeed, they want to create jobs and drive.
The honourable member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, a number of seniors in Brampton South have asked me about access of better palliative care and home care options. Our government was elected with a mandate to provide more and better home care services, including palliative care. On this National Hospice Palliative Care Week, can the Minister of Health update this House about her work to improve home and palliative care for all Canadians?
Minister of Health.
Sure, I thank the honourable member for her question. Previously in this House, I have quoted Dr. Atul Gawande, who talks about the fact that people want not only a good death, but they want a good life to the very end. For that reason, I am so committed to palliative care, and so much more work needs to be done. When Canadians face the end of their lives and when they face suffering, they want dignity, they want independence, and they prefer, if possible, to die at home. It's for that reason that our government will be investing $3 billion to increase access to home care. I will work with the provinces and territories to make sure that we increase access to high-quality palliative care for all Canadians. Thank you.
The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, in the coming days, the controversial French comedian Dieudonné is to begin a tour in Quebec. A number of politicians, including the Montreal mayor, don't want him to come. But this past weekend, the Minister of Heritage said that it would be border agents who would decide whether he should be let in. Mr. Speaker, can the Minister of Public Safety tell us what criteria these agents will be using to decide whether Dieudonné should be allowed into Canada?
Mr. Speaker, our government celebrates Canadian diversity as a tremendous source of strength, and the Jewish community, of course, in Canada is an integral part of that. We will always stand firm against intolerance and hate as we continue to build an open, inclusive society. With respect to the admissibility of a particular individual, border security officers make those determinations on the basis of the facts at ports of entry accordance to Canadian law. And I would point out that past criminality is a factor that is certainly taken into account.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Verchères les Patriotes. Mr. Speaker, like Christian Tremblay in my riding, over 26,000 Quebecers will be penalized when they sell their business to their family members because the federal government does not grant them the capital gains exemption, and yet Quebec does. Instead of looking to Quebec, this government claims that the function works the way it should and that the situation is fair, according to what the member for St. Maurice Champlain said. When will Quebec Liberal members in the government finally stand up for Quebec businesses and defend them? Honorable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, we understand that this is an important issue for many families. We believe that the current system works as it should and that it is fair for all taxpayers. We remain attuned to what people are saying. We want to foster economic growth, and we will listen to people to make sure it works. The honourable member from Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the sale of tanks to Saudi Arabia is immoral and flies in the face of ethics and responsibility, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs knows this full well. The UN said that the Saudi army is targeting schools and civilians in Yemen, and Saudi Arabia is using its tanks against political dissidents, and yet the minister continues to honor his contracts and is ready to justify the use of these tanks even though they are used for the wrong purposes, and he calls this responsible conviction. Instead of colluding, when will the minister finally end the sale of arms to Saudi Arabia? The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague to allow me to repeat yet again that the contract was signed by the previous government, the Liberal Party and the NDP party, both during the election campaign, said we would honour the contract. And so that means that when the export licenses showed up on the desk, and we said that if these arms were used for the wrong purposes, then we would not honour the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Honourable Government House Leader. We all know that in this place, in theory, all members of Parliament are equal, but sometimes large majority parties will use their power, and I think it's an abuse of power, to reduce the rights of smaller party MPs, such as in fall 2013, where every single committee was told to pass a motion to take away the rights of smaller party MPs at report stage. And I am very distressed to find that the same motion is now being asked to be passed in every committee by the Liberal majority. Will the Honourable Government House Leader please reflect on his letter of mandate and reconsider?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we're following the ruling of your predecessor. As you'll know, prior to that ruling, independent MPs could not propose amendments at committees. What we're trying to ensure is that members of Parliament from non-recognized parties in this House have an opportunity to play a constructive role in the legislative process at the committee stage, and we're giving MPs from non-recognized parties a bigger role in those committees.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Tadamura Oshima, Speaker of the House of Representatives of Japan. Tabling of point of order, the honourable member for Milton.
And, Mr. Speaker, I apologize that I seem to be stuck on this balanced budget thing, but I do have before me the fiscal monitor published by the Department of Finance that gives you the end of the year up to March. I'm wondering, Mr. Speaker, if we could table this in the House.
Is there unanimous consent to table this document? It would appear there is not. Tabling of documents.